If you have any idea of what this stuff popping up, this volunteer stuff popping up in this bonus box is, please let me know.
Henry's jealous.
You want some, buddy?
You're biting a second, okay, buddy?
He's inspecting it. Hi folks, I'm Sean the Modern Yeoman, welcoming you back to the Homestead, and don't you just love it? It's not quite summer yet. We're still technically in spring, and it feels like spring. It hasn't been too hot. There has been some muggy days. It's been pleasant. It's mostly been in the 70s these past few days. A little bit of rain here and there, but pleasant spring weather overall. This is one of those days that I'm just so happy to be out here in the garden, be out here with you, and just getting stuff done in my garden with the chickens and the turkeys and taking care of things. It's a pleasure to be out here, and I was going to show you some updates, and I'd love it if you joined me. A lot of people have been curious about how our new rooster friend, Conan, has been getting along with the flock, and he's actually right here in front of me right now. Conan, what do you think of your life so far in the Yo flock? He says he doesn't have any complaints. He wishes the ladies would be a little bit friendlier than they have been. Mostly, they've just kind of given him his space, which on the one hand is pretty encouraging. Typically, when a new chicken is introduced to a flock, there's bullying. And he hasn't really been bullied at all. I think all the ladies here know, hey, this is a rooster. We treat roosters differently typically, and they have treated him differently. But they haven't really incorporated him into any of their normal hangout activities, such as it is. Whenever he's come around and tried to hang out with the ladies, they've kind of just walked away from him. So while they're not bullying him, pretty much just giving him the cold shoulder. I think with time, they'll warm up to him. He's still very young. As he gets bigger and starts taking on some more rooster-like duties, I think they'll accept him into the fold a little bit more. But until then, he's getting along pretty well. One thing I'm very excited about is how prolific our comfrey has gotten. Those of you that have followed the channel for a while know that our friends at Permapasture's Farm gifted us some comfrey cuttings a year and a half back. And at first I was unsure how well they'd do in this soil. I wasn't sure if they'd even catch. But boy, did they ever catch. Take a look at all the comfrey that we have growing. These are just from the few root cuttings we put in the ground. And comfrey is one of those things that if it catches, and it caught here. So I'm actually going to cut some of this comfrey today and use it as mulch in the garden. A lot of people refer to comfrey as green manure because it helps gardens grow so well. And so I'm actually going to cut a bunch of this comfrey today and put it in the garden to help with our garden start, which so far it seems to be doing pretty well, which I'll show you here in a minute. You may have heard this method sometimes referred to as chop and drop, and the idea is to take a plant that decomposes in a very particular manner and use that decomposition process to further the growth of your garden plants, which I'm not going to do with all of my plants here because some clearly don't need any extra help, but I will do it with some of them. Our sweet potatoes are doing great. No issues here. You might remember they started off brown because they got a little cold, but that's actually fairly normal. And now they've greened up and they're looking really good and healthy. There's actually been some new new slips that have popped up. So I'm not worried about the sweet potatoes. And though this bed right here for the okra looks barren, packed in and clayey, for whatever reason, the okra loves this type of soil. So we've kept it as is. Our okra has always done well in this part of the world, in this part of the country. And we always have very tall okra stalks, and we don't really need to do anything with them. Even water them, frankly. I think they might be native to this particular zone. Our okra does really well. We do water them, but we're pretty much hands-off with these guys, so I won't be adding comfrey around them. Pepper friends, too, are actually doing quite well. We've been getting tons of these shishito peppers, which we just love. These things are so tasty, especially when you pickle them. We haven't really done too much of a harvest yet, but as you can see, there's a bunch of shishito peppers here, so we should probably start harvesting them soon. The other peppers are doing well, and they're actually starting to pop out. Some of these red hot cherries are looking very good, but overall it's a very healthy group of peppers this year. Do we have some popping out there? We do. We're very happy with the peppers, and I don't think they'll need much help, but I may add some more comfrey to this whole bed just mulch it over later on. By and large, I'm very happy with the peppers. I'm primarily going to be adding the comfrey as mulch around our tomato plants, which most of the tomato plants on our trellis look decent, but some look like they're struggling a little bit. So I think I'm just going to focus my first round of comfrey mulch on these tomatoes. We've actually started seeing quite a few tomatoes actually pop up on these plants, which is encouraging this early in the season. As far as our squash, the last time you saw these squash plants, they were probably like that big. They've blown up. And here's the thing. So far, we have not seen any squash bug eggs. We have not seen any squash bugs. We've only seen growth. I hope that growth continues. We are very vigilant for looking out for those squash bug eggs. Typically what you'll see on the bottom side of a squash leaf is a cluster of very tiny red eggs that are stuck to it. That's how the squash bugs lay their eggs and how they propagate. And so far from all of our squash-based plants, we've got yellow squash, we've got cucumber, we've got zucchini. We haven't seen any squash bugs yet. Fingers crossed that trend continues. We're going to keep an eye out for them. Now, as far as our greens go, well, take a look behind me. They couldn't be doing better. We've got our arugula, which is, already starting to go to seed here. I think I've plucked off a few of the flower shoots. We've got our mustard greens, which are just delicious. We've got our lettuce. We've got some new lettuce that started to pop up. And then, of course, we have our tatsoi. I've sang the praises of tatsoi in many previous videos. And as you can see here, look how green and luscious it is. Tatsoi is our replacement for spinach. I don't think we'll ever go back to spinach. Tatsoi. It's crisper. It's crispier when you bite into it. It's a little more buttery, the taste, which we enjoy. And it grows so well through all different seasons, through hot seasons and cold seasons. At least here, that's been our experience. We're gonna stick with tatsoi. Collards have been bumping. Kale has been bumping. Don't know what these are. These are maybe more kale. I have to ask Holly, but whatever it is, it's bumping. And then in this bed, we have some basil. I think that's thyme. And then we have tomatoes, more tomatoes, and these all seem to be doing quite well. So the garden is, well, we still have a bonus box that we haven't filled. We'll need to think about what we'll put in there. Probably another starchy thing that we'll actually eat, something that it's not just a side dish, but like a meal in itself. That's why we like sweet potatoes. I don't know, we'll think about what we'll put in that bonus box, but until then, there's something popping up in there, a mystery volunteer. Do you guys know what this plant is? Because it's very prolific in this ground. If you have any idea of what this stuff popping up, this volunteer stuff popping up in this bonus box is, please let me know, because I may just continue growing it. Also, you may have seen these guys in the intro, raspberries. Tons of raspberries. All of our efforts in the previous 2 years of getting these canes tied up to these little kind of mini sketchy trellises paid off, because this whole area here, previously known as the Berea, has been overtaken by these raspberries. So they're not ripe yet. They still have a few weeks to go, but we are going to have tons of raspberries here at the Yeostead. I mean, just look at this. We are going to be overtaken by raspberries. All of this, well, there's some weeds in here, but most of this is raspberries. I'm going to prepare myself for some raspberry jam and other assorted raspberry edibles, because we're going to have it coming out of our ears this year. Whenever I can, I try to make it to the back pasture. We're not doing much with it currently. At the moment, there's not much that we can do with it. But eventually, this will be a place where I believe we'll have more pigs and lambs, sheep. So until then, it's just been kind of a nice place to visit. It's always really peaceful back here. You hear the birds. You hear sometimes large animals that are walking through the woods. I think there's some deer that live near or in this stand of young maple right here. But it's always really a peaceful place when things are really stressful at work. Sometimes I'll just close my computer and walk back here and sit. I'm lucky that I have this. And recently, a viewer reached out to me to talk about her family history in this area, this particular area, how it stretches all the way back to the late 1700s, early 1800s, kind of post-Revolutionary War, and just kind of gave me an idea for how rich the history is back here. And it reminded me of a facet of our property that we don't really talk about this much. I don't think I've ever mentioned it on the channel before, but it's kind of a cool little historical piece in our property's history, and that's the fact that we're right next to, I don't know if it's part of our property or next to our property, a really old cemetery, which I can take you to right now. I'm not actually going to show the gravestones out of respect. You might be able to see it. It's really interesting. Like I said, I'm not going to show the actual names on those gravestones. One of the cool things when you look at those gravestones is the names on those gravestones match up with the street names and the road names around us. So a lot of the last names of the people on those grave markers, some which died in the early 1800s, are the names of the roads on the names of the roads around here. So it's kind of I don't want to say a sobering reminder of my own mortality, but it's something to think about how deep the roots are in this place. And it's something that gives me hope for our legacy and our future. I'd love it if the place where I'm buried is my own land. I don't know if it'll work out that way, but it really shows you how important the land was to these people that settled in this area. It's just a cool facet of our property. These really old graves are right next to us. So it's kind of sad to look at because a lot of the graves are people that were under a year old. Many of the graves there were infants. It's something interesting to look at and something to give me a little perspective. Again, when I'm having a stressful day, sometimes it's good to pull out and think about the big picture. And the grave site at the end of our property sometimes reminds me of that. So we've got the ribs. We've just placed them in the smoker, and we're going to smoke them low and slow for the next few hours, right?
Yep. I think 4 or 5 hours. We'll see how it goes, and maybe give Henry a little rib bone.
Oh boy, I'm sure he'll love that. Yes, so low and slow is the name of the game, and hopefully
You're letting the heat out.
this is our first attempt smoking our own pig's meat, rib meat.
First ribs from Franken Beans, which surprises me that we have not tried their ribs yet.
And we've got a lot of other ribs in the freezer.
Here we are.
Right? Okay, well, here's hoping it turns out all right. I guess we'll find out in a few hours.
Yep.
Well. How long have these been on the smoker or in the smoker for?
Like 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
Oh, they look and smell incredible. We've got to at least try them.
They taste good too.
Oh my gosh. Can I try a piece of Frank and/or beans? The beauties of raising your own
There you go.
meat. Oh yeah. The flavoring is perfect on this.
Good, because I made it up.
Oh, it's so tender.
Henry's jealous.
You want some, buddy?
You're biting a second, okay, buddy?
He's excited. He knows what's going on. Oh, that's so good.
All right, we gotta stop so we can get him fed.
All right. He's inspecting it. You like it?
Best dinner ever.
Oh, that's good, huh? Very simple update today, my friends. Just wanted to give you a sense of how the garden's going. There has been some interesting things happening with Nana Jana's house, which I'll probably share in the next few episodes, but things are progressing, things are moving forward, and hopefully we'll give you a pretty cool update on that front. Again, how cool is it that she lives right across the street from us? Incredible. Answered prayer, really cool to see. But we'll keep you up to date on that. But in the meantime, thanks for hanging out and walking around the homestead with me. And until I see you again next time, remember, as always, slowly, slowly.